What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live. Here on a Tuesday, we postponed the stream yesterday because it was 116 degrees in the Portland area, and I have no AC. Do you have AC in that room, Eric?
Not in the room I film in. It's hot already. I just turned the fan off and I'm already feeling it.
Yep, I'm feeling it as well. It's like 70 degrees outside right now, but I feel like it's 85 in my room. But it's a lot better than what it was yesterday. Sorry, guys, there was no way we were about to stream in rooms that were upwards of triple-digit heat, man. I mean, you had this press conference today, too, so it was a perfect time to just postpone it a day, hear out this press conference, see the reaction from it, and then give our reactions. And that is what this stream is going to be. We're going to be talking about the Chauncey Billups introductory press conference and everything that took place on social media after that. So, Eric, before we hop into things, what was your main reaction to the press conference? Do you think it was a meltdown? Do you think it was okay? Do you think it was good? What was your main reaction to this press conference?
I thought it was pretty good. In my opinion, I think it would have been better to just allow the questions. Like you could say, like, I can't answer that or whatever, but I felt like they shouldn't have cut off the questions themselves. Yeah, I think that was the only real misstep, and we'll get into that. But I didn't like that part of it. I didn't like them. They kind of came across, kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it kind of seemed like a jerk move to just be like, no, we're not going to allow that. We already discussed it. We already discussed that. I just kind of wish they would have let them ask the question and answer it a little bit. You don't have to get into specifics. Just let Chauncey answer the question,
So your takeaway is just kind of from this press conference.
Yeah, I mean, all the answers to the basketball stuff we'll get into, I thought was good. Overall, I thought it was good. I don't think it was a disaster like most people said. And I understand why they took the stance they did. I just don't I just felt like this was one moment where a little bit of more compassion and a little bit more of a rope to let people vent a little bit through their questions would have looked better for them.
Yeah, let's just talk about that right off the bat. Let's just jump into it. So they cut off a question from Jason Quick. Jason Quick asked for Chauncey Billups to elaborate how he's grown from the 1997 incident and since then. And
or how it shaped him, yeah.
To
explain specifically how it shaped him, yeah.
Yeah, the incident being, Chauncey says it was consensual. Obviously, the other side of the story it was not. But, I mean, Chauncey did admit, it was basically he cheated on his girlfriend at the time, and he had to learn from that and learn from that mistake and be a better man, essentially. I thought Chauncey was very honest and candid in the introduction. Chauncey kind of went into the incident a little bit, how he's grown from it, and then there was a question in the middle of the press conference asked by Jason Quick asking Chauncey to elaborate how he's grown from that, and the PR person shut it down saying they already answered the question. And this is the biggest thing from this press conference. It's almost like there was nothing else in this press conference, Eric.
I know.
This is the thing most talked about. You got national media outlets saying the Blazers shut down a question about Chauncey Billups' allegations. It doesn't look good. Now, there's two takeaways I have from this. Is one, I saw a lot of people saying, oh, it would have been really nice to hear Chauncey answer that. I feel like Chauncey already answered that. Yeah. He answered that at the start in the introduction. But the other takeaway is that's just bad PR to shut down that question. I'm not mad about it because in my eyes he did kind of answer it. I just think it was a PR mistake that's being spun pretty bad right now for the organization. So some people kind of agreed with that line of thinking, he already answered it, but that was a huge PR mishap because now you got all these national outlets talking about how the Blazers shut down a question when they already kind of answered that question. So Chauncey seemed like he was willing to answer that question. He was starting to answer it, and Olshey took a drink of water and looked to have looked at the PR person, so I don't know if it was the PR person or if it was Olshey and that was their signal.
Yeah.
The thing is, I could believe that's a signal.
It definitely looked like a signal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so I mean, I assume that's Olshey that kind of halted that question. I think that was obviously a mistake. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be because Chauncey already answered that question. Chauncey will have the opportunity in the future to talk with Jason Quick, to go into depth about how he's grown from that, to elaborate on it from what he's learned in his past 24 years. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a situation where we'll never get the answer to that question. We already kind of got it in the introduction, and I feel like we could get it in the future with the Jason Quick article, which might be a better form to get that answer from Chauncey compared to, in the middle of a press conference. Where you're talking about basketball, you're also talking about the allegations and stuff, but in the middle of a press conference where he's already kind of touched on that already. So part of me understands why they shut it down. Mainly they shouldn't because it's a bad look, and I feel like shouldn't be any harm from letting Chauncey go into depth about it. So I think that was definitely a mistake. But I saw people so outraged over it, and I don't know. I just don't share that. I don't agree with the utter outrage of the fact that they said that Chauncey already answered that question, and let's answer the next question.
Yeah, well, so first of all, Ishfluent asked what did they think he was going to say, that she was lying. So that wasn't the question, though. The question was, like, how did that shape you, like, this experience? Like, because he mentioned in his introductory, like, speech or whatever that it shaped him into the person who he was today. So Quick, I think, was more at just asking how that experience affected him and how that turned him into a different person. Like, he could have just either reiterated what he said, or he could have just said like I already kind of explained that or whatever. Like, I don't know. But that wasn't a situation where they were asking him, like, did you do it or not? Like, that's completely different in my opinion, right? So yeah, I don't think that was quite like the line of questioning that should be shut down. I thought the Sean Hyken question about where Neil said that's proprietary or whatever, and that's turning into like a meme from all that group. But like,
that's what I wanted to talk about next.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll get to that in a second. But let me just say, I think the Blazers, instead of just cutting the question off, they should have had it, if they were smart PR-wise, they should have had it to where they did cut it off, but then instructed Billups to then answer it anyway and just be like, no, wait a minute, I want to answer that. Because I think, like, low-key, that would have given him a lot of, like, weight from that group that doesn't like him. It's like, oh, wow, they tried to cut him off, but he still answered anyway. That shows maybe that he's like wanting to talk about it and wanting to do something. I thought that was like a little bit of an opportunity for Billups to just stand up and do the right thing by answering that question if he is trying to be transparent.
I see that line of thinking, but I feel like for the people that have already completely condemned him, it wouldn't have changed their minds. Because you know how strongly opinionated people are on this, man. I mean, just you go on Twitter, everybody just has such a strong opinion on this that I don't think Billups could have even done anything to really gain any points with the people that have already just like, he definitely did it no matter what, screw him.
I think, though, that, like, I kind of got the feeling afterwards that people are more upset with Olshey just because they hate him, versus anything Billups said, Like, I don't think they really cared, or they didn't think Billups really said anything wrong. It's more that the organization is standing so firmly in support of him versus what he did, in my opinion. So
see, and maybe that's not a bad thing from him shutting it off, because it's like it looked like Chauncey wanted to answer it anyway, and then Olshey shuts it off, and it gets a bunch of people pissed at Olshey. But maybe he's trying to like take it easy on Chauncey. I don't know, but that was the takeaway: is everybody was worked up about Olshey. There wasn't really anybody like talking about Chauncey or being outraged about Chauncey. So I don't think that's a bad thing. If everybody wants to hate Olshey and just scream and yell at him, cool. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, I don't like, it's annoying, and I'll call it out. But like, Olshey can be the guy that everybody's mad at. I feel like,
I think
with a guy like, yeah, I'd rather have that than like public opinion play judge, jury, and executioner for Chauncey Billups when he was never convicted or charged of anything. You know what I mean? Like, so that coming out of this press conference, I'm cool with that. With everybody being mad at Olshey. But yeah, I definitely should have let him answer. I can't blame Chauncey for not willingly like saying like, no, I want to answer it, because he could tell, him in that situation. It's not the most comfortable situation. It's his first time dealing with local Portland media. It's not like local Portland media were welcoming whatsoever. How many times did you hear them say, "Welcome to Rip City, Chauncey," or something like that? No, it was just...
That was more than I thought it was going to be.
Still, you compare that to like a player or somebody else, I thought there was a noticeable difference there. So it was just kind of a situation where like he's already uncomfortable. He's probably just going to go along with Neil, and I can't fault him for that.
See, you talked about the quit piece. I hope that happens. I really do. I have a feeling, though, they're just going to be like, from now on, like, we addressed this already, we're not talking about it anymore, so those questions are off limits from now on. And I hope that's not the case. But that's why I think it would have just been better to be like, look, we're here. We might not be able to answer any specific questions. If you ask that, I'm going to have to cut you off and say, due to the proprietary stuff, like, we can't answer that fully. That's totally fine. But I think they should have just sat there and took all the questions for however long it would have been. And I think that would have been better PR-wise in my mind versus just, we already talked about it. We said our thing, and now we're not talking about it anymore. It just kind of like downplayed it a little bit in my mind. Like, they could have just, they knew it was coming. They knew it was going to happen. I think they should have just given their introductory speeches. I thought those were both good, both by Olshey and Billups, and then just been like, okay, we'll sit here and answer the questions. We're not going to keep answering the same question over and over, but if you have a new question, we're more than willing to talk about what we can from the topic, but just know that there's certain issues we can't talk about due to the investigation paperwork we signed or whatever, and due to the fact that Chauncey settled, he probably has non-disclosure agreements from that case back in '97 that still apply to this as well. Without getting into specifics, I thought they could have kind of just manned up and took the questions a little better. Mm-hmm. You're muted.
Oh, I am muted. You're right. No, I'm not muted. So, as far as the other thing I wanted to get into, it was the Sean Hyken question, where he asked who they hired to do the investigation, what the investigation found, and Olshey reacted with, that's proprietary, and basically didn't answer the question. There's something called a proprietary information agreement, which is a legally binding contract that stipulates that a number of parties must not disclose confidential supplies, data, or information as outlined by the contract to a different third party. That's the definition straight from Google. Olshey saying it's proprietary makes me think there was probably a proprietary information agreement. I struggle with saying that. But a PIA for short. I kind of wish Olshey just said, yeah, we have a I'm tired of saying this word. We have a PIA in place. We can't legally talk about that, if that was the case. I don't know if he's legally allowed to even say that, but if he is, I wish he just said that instead of it's proprietary, because I don't think anybody could have faulted him for it if he said, I legally can't answer your question, if that makes sense.
I thought in that answer, he gave his worst sentence of the entire press conference, and that was, you're just going to have to trust us. He should not have said that. I thought thought that was bad. He should have just said, like, yeah, like you said, we have a proprietary agreement. We can't discuss any of the specifics of our investigation or who did the investigation or any of that. That's all like protected information, and we're gonna have to, we're just gonna have to like leave it at that. There's nothing more we can say about that. So, I think it was kind of yeah, I can see why people took it as a smart ass answer. He kind of could have said it in a nicer way, I guess, but
But people need to quit being soft about that. Okay, because
just like,
people,
I mean, no matter what he says, they're not going to accept any answer he gives. So it's just
people are watching this press conference, the people that hate Olshey, and they are wanting to be mad. They want to be mad at Olshey. They are waiting to be mad. They will take anything and spin it where they're mad. And now somebody might say, oh, that's ironic. You know, you guys will watch Stott's press conferences and get pissed at everything he said. It wasn't like I wanted to get pissed. You know, I didn't even want to watch his press conferences. And then you guys wanted me to watch them. And then I watch them, and Stotts would say something absolutely ridiculous, like Derrick Jones Jr., you know, like he essentially threw Derrick Jones Jr. under the bus, basically saying he had no impact on the defense, positive or negative, when he's one of the better defenders on the team. You know, it was just stuff like that. I didn't want to be pissed off by Stotts. I wanted Stotts to do well. Mm-hmm. And every time I watched an interview, it's like, let's see what he says. And our reactions were genuine. And I feel like our reactions were based on Stotts saying some ridiculous stuff and never taking accountability. Eric, Olshey took more accountability in this press conference than Stotts did all of last season. Yep. Okay? But after this, you have people that were probably pro-Stotts sitting there like, Olshey never takes accountability for anything. It's like, I don't know what they watched. I mean, I tweeted it out. Olshey took responsibility for the roster. He said at times the roster may have overachieved a little bit. He said at times they didn't go into seasons with a roster that could necessarily contend, and that's his job. He said he's responsible for keeping Dame happy and that he's accountable for that. That's more accountability than Stotts took all of last season. You know what I mean? But still, after this, I see people screaming and yelling on social media about how Neil Olshey never takes accountability, right? But it's like, when he says that, none of them say anything about it. It's what they've all been waiting for, right, Eric? Mm-hmm. They've been waiting for this man to take accountability because they talk about it nonstop. And then when he does, nothing. And then after the interview, after the press conference, it's all the same stuff. He never takes accountability. He never takes accountability. It's stuff like that that just makes me feel like, okay, these people went into this press conference with the mindset that they were going to be mad at Olshey no matter what, because they already were mad at him, because they hate him. They hate him. So I don't think there's anything Olshey could have done in this press conference to not have gotten backlash. You know, he did make some mistakes, and we've talked about the two, like, really the only two mistakes from the press conference, in my opinion. Maybe there's another one in your mind, and we'll get to that next. But it's like, he makes two mistakes, in my opinion, and everybody is just, like, crushing him for it. Absolutely crushing him. You know? Oh, you don't ever take responsibility for the roster. Well, it's the same people after last offseason saying, oh, I really like what Olshey did. Well, what changed? Why did it go from, I really like Olshey's 2020 offseason to, he's a trash GM. He can't put together a good enough roster. This roster's trash. You know what I mean? Everything always comes back to people wanting to hate on him. And that was my takeaway from today from social media and kind of the way that people reacted to Olshey.
Well, we got people like Danny Meringue who says, like, I was expecting terrible, but that was just horrendous. Like, really? That was worse than you thought it was going to be? That's BS, and you're a liar. Like these guys all expected this to be a train wreck. Mm-hmm. And so, like, anyone who says it was worse than they expected is lying, because they all expected it to be bad, and it's not possible for it to be worse than they expected. And I don't know what anyone, he could have said anything. I mean, they could have had, like, proof that Billups didn't do it or whatever, and these people would still say that was the worst press conference ever, you know? So there's nothing really they could have done to please those people. So just going to have to ignore them, I guess. But, Yeah, so just let me address Luke Lindikoff keeps saying, why are we still talking about this? Let's move on. This is going to be an issue with Billups. It's not going to go away. It doesn't seem like anytime soon. We weren't going to talk about basketball. We've tried to do a good job of balancing the two and not focusing too much on this. But this is from today. We're reacting to the press conference. We have to talk about this. Like, we can't just ignore what's going on and just talk about basketball as much as we'd like to. We do have to address some of the other things that happened, and we will talk about basketball later, but I'm sorry, but we can't just ignore what's going on. This is huge news. It's a huge story. This is a big deal to a lot of people, and so we're going to talk about it. I mean, I'm sorry if some people don't like that, but like we have to at least talk about it on the day of when it actually happens.
Yeah, and the thing is, what the fan base and the media says obviously affects the organization. Obviously. I mean, this whole situation playing out, like, a big part of it is how the media is covering it and how the fan base is reacting to it. Yeah. So that stuff is relevant to the team. So we're going to discuss whatever's relevant to the team. That's relevant to the team. So, I mean, we're going to touch on it. This season is just going to be anytime a player misses a shot, anytime a player drops a pass, anytime a player misses a dunk, it's going to be people on social media screaming about Olshey. That's all the season is going to be. And like, people say, oh, you're hypocrites. You know, you guys were mad over Stotts almost all season long. We backed up everything we said, though. We backed up everything with basketball reasoning. We backed up everything with legitimate substance. And you're going to get people that are just screaming at Olshey no matter what all season long. So there will be stretches where I try and ignore it. But today, with how people were acting, I can't lie, I had a little bit of fun calling some of it out. What? I mean, the fan base is so divided right now.
Well, what's funny, Tori, is all those people who just will never give Olshey a fair deal or whatever. Those are all the same people who, back when it was not cool to criticize Stotts, when you and I started doing it, those are all the same people calling us names and telling us we were clowns and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of funny now that like we were right about the coaching. It's to be determined, the roster. I don't know if we'll ever know for sure if we make changes or not. But I'm one of the few people that still believes in the roster. I do think they need to improve parts. Obviously, you have to improve parts every year, and you have to make changes, and you have to fill holes and stuff like that. But I still think there is enough talent on this roster, even if they run it back. Now, I'm not saying I want them to run it back. Don't twist my words. But if they run it back with a better coach and Billups is everything he says he's going to be, like he explained today, I truly believe this roster is good enough to do at least what the Suns did this year. And I believe in that. I mean, people can say I'm crazy or whatever, but I still believe in the players on this roster, and I think if they had someone who just guided them better, who made them a little more tougher and gave them more of a tougher style mentally and identity-wise as a team, and was just more prepared, I think this team could go a lot farther than it has.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But it's just funny because we were told, you guys are so negative. You guys are so negative. Well, right now, it's like we're too positive, Eric. It went the other way. We're too positive. We don't hate Olshey enough. The thing is, I'm not even pro Olshey, okay? The most memeable clip from my YouTube channel is me throwing my hat because I was mad at Olshey for signing Derrick Jones Jr. But I did say Derrick Jones Jr., I was mad about the signing, mostly because he was a terrible fit under Stotts.
Yeah.
So I didn't want him to just come in here and get parked in the corner. I also thought he was a bad defender at the time. I was a little bit clueless on him, believe it or not. So, I mean, it's just going to be a situation where everybody's going to be yelling at Olshey. I'm not even pro Olshey. I'm just not going to try and crucify him over anything I can find. I'm not going to be unfair towards him. I don't think he's done a bad job the past couple of seasons. Everybody says the 2019 offseason was awful, was terrible. But I mean, he got it at the time, was thought to be a legitimate center for Yusuf Nurkic and Hassan Whiteside. Kent Bazemore was coming off a decent season, played terrible for us in Stats' offense. Since he left, he's been really, really solid as a role player. That was a good trade. Rodney Hood got hurt. Zach Collins got hurt. That's not Olshey's fault. You know what I mean? Everybody's like pissed off at Olshey because Collins is hurt again, but it's like, how was Olshey supposed to know Collins was going to be injury prone? He wasn't injury prone before that. He never had a history of injuries coming into the league.
Healthy,
yeah, and the first 2 years completely healthy. And it's not like he dislocated his shoulder and then he fractured his foot and then refractured it 2 more times. Mm-hmm. So it's like stuff like that, man. I get it. There was better players in the draft, but I mean, the draft is hit or miss. I mean, the draft after that, he gets Gary Trent Jr. in the second round, but nobody talks about that, and we turned that into Norman Powell. Hopefully he stays. We turned that into like an almost 20-point per game scorer and potentially a CJ replacement, all from a second-round draft pick. But it's like nobody gives him credit for that. We went out and got the perfect 3-and-D forward for us in Rocco last offseason. I don't know. Like, sure, there are things you can look at, and that was bad. That was bad. Mario Hezonja, bad. Anthony Tolliver, bad. But there's
those
a
guys
lot of
shouldn't have
good.
really played though if we don't have injuries.
Yeah. Now that's one of my criticisms of him is he doesn't work around the the edges of the roster well enough. You got other teams that'll just find a player from Europe and they'll become a good NBA role player in a couple years. Or you have teams that will find like the next. Olshey Brissett is a guy who kind of broke out a little bit this year, and he looks like he can be a role player going forward. And I don't know. We don't really get those out of nowhere breakout guys, but I feel like when Paul Allen was the owner, Paul Allen meddled a lot, and Olshey's job was as much to keep Paul Allen happy as it was to make the roster good, because Paul Allen's happiness was Neil Olshey's job security. So if Paul Allen wanted to keep guys, Olshey almost had no choice but to keep guys. Because if you go against the owner's wishes, then there's a rift there, and then you get fired. So, before Paul Allen passed, it's hard to blame Olshey for too much. It's reported that Paul Allen told Olshey, yeah, we're going to match on Allen Crabbe. Who knows if Olshey actually wanted to do it or not. So, I'm not saying Paul Allen was a problem. I think he was a really good owner. But it's hard to blame him for anything before that, and then since then I think he's been very, very solid. So I don't hate him like other people do.
Let me ask you a question, Tori. I don't know if you remember the summer of 2016.
Of course I do.
Do you remember who everyone's number one free agent they wanted to sign was?
Not off the top of my head.
I'm pretty sure it was one Hassan Whiteside.
Is that right? Who they all wanted? I remember him being a target. Yeah.
Okay, Chandler Parsons was who Neil went after, but I think those of you that know, Hibbert was before that. It was Hassan Whiteside, and when he resigned with remember it came out he was second on we were second on his list, and everyone was like, "Oh crap, we were so close. We could have gotten Whiteside. We would have signed him to a max deal, right? Used most of our cap space on that versus doing that, right?"
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2019. Oh, those same people are like, "Oh, what a terrible trade trading for Hassan Whiteside or whatever." We traded Myers Leonard and Mo Harkless for him, right?
Yeah.
And so like, but now all of a sudden we get him for basically nothing, and it's like the worst trade ever. And 2019 was a disaster because he traded for him. It's like.
Yeah.
Like if we would have signed him in 2016, all those people would have been happy, and then that would have been like just as bad of a signing then. And we probably don't have Nurkic now, So because we traded for Nurkic that very next season.
Here's the thing, Eric. If we had that signing, people would have revisionist history, even though they wanted it at the time.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2 years, and they're all saying Olshey sucks because he signed him to a max.
And I absolutely hated the Turner signing. Like, I will never defend that. However. Turner was basically completely like, I don't know what the right word is, but Stotts ruined Turner. Like, he was a good playmaker. He ran the second unit with Boston. He liked to run. He averaged like 5 assists per game. All his like playmaking analytics were really good, and they all just went down to like terrible levels under Stotts. And like I can't blame Olshey for that. Yes, it was a terrible signing, but if we got Boston Evan Turner, it wouldn't have been that bad. And we shouldn't have given him that much money. There's no excuse for that. Like I said, there's no defense.
Everybody overpaid that offseason, Eric.
Yeah, but like there should have been. We should have had a better way to sign him. And then you fast forward to what you just mentioned about the Derrick Jones thing. And I was pissed when we signed Derrick Jones because I knew this was going to freaking happen. We called it right that moment when we signed him. That's the exact reaction. So we had that reaction. And then Derrick Jones Jr. actually plays well despite Stotts not using him right. And everyone's like, you owe Derrick Jones an apology. It was never about Derrick Jones. It was never about him. It was about that Stotts. We knew that moment that signing happened, that Stotts didn't use him right. And that's why Olshey was so mad in his exit interview. That's why he was pissed at Stotts and that's why he threw him under the bus. Because they went into last offseason, what do we need to do? We need to bring in a wing who can play good perimeter defense. Well, Derrick Jones was one of the best perimeter defense, like 3-point statistic-wise and defense-wise in the NBA his last season in Miami.
Yeah, 3-point defense, yeah.
Yeah, and then you bring in Rocco, who's considered one of the best 3-and-D forwards in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And the defense doesn't improve at all. And Stotts is just like, well, he doesn't have any impact on it. Like, yeah, no crap. Yeah. I would be mad too if I was Olshey, dude. Like, I give you these pieces and you say you're going to change your style to fit these new pieces because you know your old style doesn't work, and you waste an entire season on this system that you know is not going to work in the playoffs, and you get your butt kicked by an injured Denver team that you should have beat easily. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, I would be mad too if I was Olshey. And now all these people are saying like Olshey can't build a roster. The roster sucks. Dame doesn't have any help. Like all this stuff. That's not even the case. This roster is pretty good. There is lots of talent on this roster. There's also guys that could have been used or developed over the last couple of years. Nas in particular. Simons could have been used in a different way. And then also this year, Giles could have gotten more of a role earlier in the season, and you could have developed him into something. But like none of those guys got a chance in the playoffs or to do anything because Stotts didn't think they had an impact. And so this is why I do think a new coach who trusts in these guys. Look at a Terrence Mann. That guy says that Ty Lue came in and treated every player on that team, 1 through 12, like he had confidence in them. If I put you in the game, I want you in the game for a reason, and I believe in you and stuff like that. And he says like he was like wondering if he was even going to make it in the league after a couple of years versus like actually doing well in the playoffs. So like it's just like that's why I think a coach can make so much more of a difference than people get a credit for. And I don't understand killing Olshey over something that I don't believe was his fault. Yes, the roster could be better balanced. Yes, I understand most people don't believe in CJ, whatever. But like, I still think this team's ceiling is way higher than it should have. It has been the last few years.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We'll segue this kind of back to the press conference. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for next season, no matter what the roster is, as long as Dame's on it, of course. But I think Chauncey's going to be a great coach. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be a great coach. His answers today, Eric, how long did we wait to hear some of the things that Chauncey Billups said about basketball?
Man, I wish we could get him on the show.
Oh, my goodness. Like, he's like,
it's like everything, yeah, like Eric also said.
I need to look up some quotes. Yeah. If somebody can send me quotes, just DM me quotes that you liked from Chauncey Billups. I wish I had notes here. I've kind of had a hectic day. But, dude, okay, what are the things we always ask for, Eric? Ball movement, versatile defense in terms of schemes, accountability. Those are the three main pillars.
Yep.
Okay? He talked about all three.
Yep.
He talked about using Dame and CJ off the ball a little bit more. He talked about using Nurkic as a facilitator.
Sorry. He said, can't have Dame and CJ bailing us out. He specifically said that. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, Thank you.
It's like you watched our show, bro.
I know.
Yeah, there was so many quotes. Everything he said about basketball, I loved. Like, it was music to my ears. There wasn't one thing he said about coaching that I disliked. Like, he said they have to be adjustable. They have to make better adjustments. He said he thinks that this team should be better defensively. Like, I mean, just literally everything we've said, he said. I don't have any exact quotes. If you want to message me tweets of some, I know a lot of people were tweeting them out. Here's one. Shout out to RV_918 on Twitter. He says, this is a Chauncey quote. Chauncey said, I think we can even be better offensively with more ball movement, different schemes, different plays, executing a little bit better. Playing on both sides of the floor a little bit more, not having to, like, you know, have Dame and CJ bail you out with those shots that they can make all the time. Having some more continuity, not only ball movement, but player movement.
Yes. And the other thing I loved him saying was, he said, no coach is perfect, no player is perfect, no, like, scheme is perfect or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he says you have to work pulling the rope together, right? You all have to work doing it. And he said the way to do that is to be honest with each other and to not just be like, oh, well, Dame, I'm just going to not yell at Dame because he's my best player and I can't make him mad and want him, or maybe he won't want me as coach anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Chauncey's going to be like that. I think he's just going to come in and be like, dude, Dame, you can't be doing this, like, lazy-ass crap on defense, you know? Like this is not winning basketball. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, this kind of play will not get you to where you need to be on defense. And I think Dame, he mentioned this. You either... Most good players are going to accept that and like that and want to hear that criticism. And we've heard Dame talk about Phil Beckner, his personal trainer, you know, give him that kind of advice, honest advice that's not good enough or whatever. And Dame, we see how much Dame appreciates him saying that to him. And I think Vanderpool was probably the same way for him. So I think just having someone that's going to not sugarcoat things and not tell him, like, oh, it's okay if you don't play defense or just hide in the corner, you know, it'll be all right. Like, no, you can't get away with that. Like, we have to have you playing defense and we have to have you like not falling asleep. Same with CJ if he's on the team. So, like, I just really liked like everything he said. And I feel like he has, it's not just talk when he talks about accountability. Like, you can tell, even though he doesn't have head coaching experience, you can just tell he's going to command that presence on the team. And he already, I mean, you saw how many players around the league, like LeBron is saying congratulations to him and stuff like that. Like this guy is going to, from day one, come in, I think, and just have these guys' attention. And it'll be, I wouldn't say easy, but, like, I don't think that's ever going to be a problem, at least, you know. And if they don't have success after a couple of years, sure, it might get to be like an issue. They might tune him out. But initially, I think these guys are going to be all ears and happy to learn from him and want to learn and want to hear what he has to say and try out whatever he suggests. And I think that is a really good situation for this team.
Yep, I 1000% agree. The rest of the quote was like on Nurkic, so I wanted to segue into Nurkic.
Yes.
This is what Chauncey said about Nurk. He said,
real quick.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Nurk's gonna have his guarantee picked up in case anyone.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't a question before.
I know.
But like people were like, dang, Nurk might not want to come back. You know, Nurk said he'll come back in the right situation. Eric, Chauncey Billups is the right situation for Nurkic.
Yes.
And it's obvious based off this quote. Chauncey, dude, just the fact that Chauncey said, like, Chauncey just, when he talked about the team and basketball and everything, like, I don't know how he could have done any better. Like, A+ when it comes to the basketball. And Chauncey talking basketball. This is what Chauncey said about Nurkic. He said, Big Nurk is an asset. I think he can score more than he has in the past. He's a really good facilitator, moving him around, putting the ball in his hands, moving Dame and CJ off the ball a little bit. That's something me and you have been asking for forever. It's crazy, dude. Like, everything we asked for, he talked about wanting to do. So we'll be able to see, in my opinion, maybe you know, the roster will be a lot better, and that'll kind of, you know, maybe not do us you know, maybe it won't. I'm stumbling on words here. Let me just restart. Like, if we do all the things that we asked for, and we crush it out of the park, and we win a ton of games, I mean, that just proves us right even more, you know? And I don't even care about being right. I want this team to be good. But it's exciting because Chauncey basically said he wants to do all the things that we've wanted the team to do the past couple years. Mm-hmm. Which makes me think we're going to be able to see it and actually see what the result would be with how we wanted the team actually coached compared to Stotts. So it'll be interesting to kind of just look at their performance doing a lot of the things we wanted.
As Slim Bent and others pointed out, he did... Nurk posted a picture of him watching Chauncey. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is what I don't get about the coaching doesn't matter or has little impact crew or whatever you want to call them. Like, we see how much like coaching matters like in the playoffs, right? And then we see a guy like Chauncey come in and say how we need to do all these things different. And it's like, so how do they not see like, oh yeah, like that's a good point or whatever? Like, we've been making these points all along, and this is exactly why we haven't liked Stotts. So I don't get how you can, if this is successful, how you can retroactively still say Stotts did a good job or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to, I've said this many times. I like, who knows if it'll happen or not, but I almost want them to just run it back just so we can see just what, because everyone's convinced that, just changing a coach doesn't matter. Like, Olshey is trying to act like just getting a better coach would like make them a better team or something, you know, like I kind of want to like prove those people wrong, but
yeah,
I do want to improve the team too. I do want to see them win a championship. So, yeah, like, go ahead.
Yeah, here's the thing I just want to say on Nurkic, before we get too far away from him. I think he'll be bought in next year. I think he'll be bought in under Billups more than any coach he's ever had. I think it was obvious he didn't like playing for Stotts, and he didn't really respect Stotts as a coach. He didn't like what Stotts was doing, okay? It sounded like Nurkic wanted a lot of the same things we want, and now a lot of the same things Chauncey wants. So I feel like Nurkic is going to be extremely bought in next season because he's going to be utilized. And maybe, you know, he has some growing pains with that, with having more responsibility, but Chauncey is credited with improving Reggie Jackson's playmaking, Kawhi Leonard's playmaking, Paul George's playmaking for the Clippers this past season. Nurkic is already a good passer. If Chauncey can help him become an even better passer, and then it sounds like Chauncey's going to utilize his playmaking, I think Nurkic next year is going to average more than 5 assists per game if he can play around 30 minutes per game. I think he's going to be a big part of the offense, and I think by the end of the season he's going to be thriving. And he's going to be playing the best basketball of his career. That's one of my predictions for Nurkic under Chauncey.
Well, I don't know. This is kind of like slipped into an answer, but he did say something about he thinks like Nurkic could score more too.
Yeah, that was in the quote I read off. Yeah,
and so like, yeah, most people are focusing on the passing, but like, I think he's going to utilize him more, and if he is a threat to score too. More like when he gets the ball up top sometimes, like a lot of times he's looking to pass right away, and it's obvious he's looking to pass. He's not going to shoot it. So if you get him in positions to where he's facilitating out of the block or something, where he's also a threat to like spin and or drop step and score or do a little hook shot as well, like those kind of situations make passing so much easier if you're in a dual threat position where you could either score, drive, or pass. Now, Nurk's not the greatest driver, so that probably won't be a part of it. But like the other two, I just feel like they can be used so much better. And yeah, I'm excited to see Nurk like actually play. And I mentioned this on the stream on Friday night when we found out Billups was going to be the guy, is that I feel like Billups too will explain why he wants Nurk to do it instead of just, nope, you're doing it my way. I'm not going to let you do that. No, I don't want you to trap. I don't want you to pressure the ball. I want you to just drop in the paint or whatever. And if the games or the times when he has him drop, I feel like Billups will be like, I know you don't like dropping, but here is why you need to do it in this situation, instead of just like, nope, this is how I want you to do it. Don't go rogue. Like, don't do that, you know? And so I think that'll lead to Nurk being a lot more engaged. And I don't think it's too crazy to say you won't see much like pouty Nurk, or I don't think you'll see a lot of the silly fouls or the frustration fouls or the the obvious frustration with the coach. I mean, I think Nurk could maybe even get some like most improved player nominations next year if he gets to playing to his potential.
I mean, he has the potential to be like a 17 point per game, 11 rebound per game, 5 assists per game guy, and a top 10 defensive center in the league. I mean, that would make him maybe a top 5 center. That would make him a borderline top 5 center. That I think he'd be as good as a Sabonis, because Sabonis can't defend. Yeah, he can score. Yeah, he can play make. I think Nurkic has the potential to do that as well, but actually be a good defender. I mean, you look at all these centers that everybody seemingly wants to trade Nurkic for. I think under the right coach that can get the most out of him, I think Nurkic could be as good as those centers. The thing is, if you're trading Nurkic for Sabonis, you're also going to have to give up 2 first-round picks. And maybe an Anthony Simons. You know what I mean? You're going to have to give up a ton of value for him, when I think Nurkic has the potential to be just as good as a lot of these centers that people want to trade him for. I'm not saying he is that good yet. I'm saying the best version of Nurkic could be that good, potentially. Now, to get the best version of Nurkic, you have to have the right coach for him. And Stotts wasn't that guy. I think Chauncey's that guy. I think Nurkic is going to have a huge season next year. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy. Fingers crossed. He obviously hasn't had the best luck with that. If he can stay healthy, I agree with you. He has a chance to get some most improved votes. He has a chance to be an all-star if we're a top 3 team. Obviously, it depends on who else is on the team, and we can talk about that in a little bit, kind of at the end of this stream. But I think Nurkic is going to have a huge year next year. I'm so excited to watch him play under Chauncey.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's, I guess that'd be a good segue into the news from today. About another center.
I like the good vibes right now. I don't want to touch on that yet. Let's touch on that at the end, because I'm getting hyped right now, Eric.
Yeah.
And that's just depressing. But the next player I wanted to talk about. Okay, I'm just kind of like tying in players to Chauncey, if that's what you want to do, or do you have anything?
Fun. Nope, that's good.
Okay. I'm excited to see Anthony play under Chauncey. Here's a hot take, Eric. I think Anthony Simons will be a top 5 guard off the bench next year under Chauncey Billups. Okay? And here's why. He's a phenomenal 3-point shooter. He shot, what was it? Let me find his stats here. I believe 41.
6,
was it 42.6? Even better than I'm saying. Yeah, he shot 42.6% from 3. And they weren't the easiest looks. The Blazers shot more contested threes than pretty much any team in the league. And Anthony shot him off the dribble, off the move, and the fact that he shot almost 43% from 3, he's an absolute sniper. He's one of the best shooters off the bench in the NBA. But then he has so much more potential, right? Defensively, I thought the last 2 months of the season, he was really, really solid. Like, he was good. Watching Game 6, I paid a lot of attention to how Anthony was defending, because I was sitting up close to the court. It was something that I could watch a little bit easier. The dude is quick laterally. He fouled a bit too much, in his first couple of seasons. Kind of would have some ticky-tack fouls, some mistake fouls. I believe as he gets a little smarter, as he gets a little stronger, You can still, add a little bit of strength, but he's better than he was his rookie year, obviously. There's no reason why he can't be a good defender. And I thought he had enough flashes last year that going into next season under a coach that knows how to coach defense, that won't leave his guards on an island by dropping his big 100% of the time, maybe teaching our guards how to get through screens, because Chauncey knew how to get through screens. Our guards don't have good technique getting through screens. That's something that they can improve pretty easily, in my opinion, if they're coached correctly and held accountable for it. I think Anthony will be a good 3-and-D guy next year. But here's why I think he's going to be a top 5 guard off the bench next year. He's not like an isolation CJ type player yet. He struggles to beat his guy off the dribble and then finish around the rim. He only shot 40% from 2. In an offense that moves players and moves the ball, I think he will be a lot more of a threat to slash. Because he won't have to break down his guy off the dribble. If he's moving off the ball and the ball's moving and the defense is moving with it, he'll be catching the ball with guys closing out to him on his side, and he'll have a wide open driving lane. And with his athleticism, you give him a driving lane, he's a threat to finish around the rim. As a cutter, as a lob target, in transition, in fast break, finishing around the rim, I believe next season, that's the biggest difference that you'll see with him, is he won't just be a three-point shooter offensively. And then also, as I said earlier, Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, like all those guys have basically credited Chauncey Billups with improving their playmaking. I'm curious to see if Chauncey can improve Anthony's playmaking. And I think if Anthony plays in an offense that moves the ball better, and, it's like you catch the ball, you shoot, or you drive on the closeout, if somebody rotates over, you kick. That type of passing, compared to having to break down an entire defense that's set with everybody standing around and making something happen out of that, I believe Anthony will be a better playmaker next year. I think he will be a top 5 guard off the bench under Chauncey.
Well, I mean, we know Nas is under contract, but I feel the same way about him. And I mean, if we somehow brought Giles back, I would put him in there. Can you imagine like just a second unit that had all that movement, athleticism, and actually like ran and played defense? And man, that'd be so crazy to think about. But see, the thing about Billups when he played, that guy was just tough as nails, man. Like both offensively and defensively, he was just strong. Like he was tough. Like you didn't want to play against him because he's just like a pain, man. Like that guy was like always like in your face, like, or backing you down, or like driving on you, whatever. Like, so if he like somehow gets that to rub off on a guy like Ant, who has already shown a lot of improvement from his first couple seasons to now defensively, just getting him to play with that attitude, like I am a good defender, and gets him to believe it. Because I think that's Ant seems like a confident guy, but like he definitely lost his confidence the season before when he got kind of thrown into the fire and might not have been quite ready to be Seth Curry off our bench, like the season before that. So I feel like if Billups can be like, dude, no, you can be that lockdown defender. You can be a tough defender. Like you don't, just because like you're skinny or whatever doesn't mean you can't play tough on defense. And I think he's going to like unlock some like mental edge there that and I mean this is all speculation because you don't know, but like if Billups teaches him to play the way he did, I mean Simon still has, I mean the ceiling on Simons is still like an all-star level player. I'm not saying he'll ever reach that, and probably not in Portland because, playing off the bench or whatever, as long as we have CJ. But, like, I still am really high on Simons, as I am Nas, and as I am on Zach still, which we'll get into later.
Yeah. We'll get into Zach. But for all the same reasons, I'm excited to see Anthony under him. I'm excited to see Nas, too. Because Nas isn't a guy one-on-one, but you give him a driving lane, watch out. Yeah. And, he didn't get the easiest threes, and his three-point percentage, I mean, he was hitting almost everything to start the season, and then it tapered off. He still finished With a solid 3-point percentage. It was an improvement from the past year. He shot 35% from three in his second season after 24% his rookie year. Obviously, his shot looks a lot better. So you like the improvement. I feel like we could get him easier looks. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of guys. You know, we don't really get our forward clean looks because of the way our offense runs is just so stagnant. You know, so it's easy to help off and recover to guys and rotate out to guys because the defense is completely set. So that's why it's like you get a guy like Rocco and he shoots a career high from three because, you know, I mean, he's able to get some good shots and he's not a guy that's going to force a bunch of contested looks. But he also scores. He doesn't score as much. He doesn't score on the same amount of volume. Let's see here. Last season for Minnesota and Houston, he averaged 12.4 points per game. He shot over 10 shots a game. This season, he only shot 7 shots a game, even though he played a couple more minutes per game. His scoring went down from 12.5 points per game to 8.5 points per game, despite him shooting a career high from three-point land. I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence. We don't get our forwards clean looks, and I think that even applies to Nas this past season. So I'm curious to see, under Chauncey Billups, are we able to get a guy like Robert Covington more open threes? Are we able to get a guy like Nasir Little more open threes? Because if we get Nasir Little more open threes, I feel like his three-point percentage is going to go up a little bit more. And then if we move the ball and he's able to catch and just attack a seam in the defense instead of having to kind of isolate, pound the ball, take a guy one-on-one, I'm excited to see Nas under Chauncey as well.
And Nas, he's a guy who can grab a rebound, dribble up the floor, and initiate some offense, pass to an open shooter, kind of drive and kick, or take it to the rack if he gets a lane. I think, I'm really excited for Nas because I think he's got the potential to be the best all-around player between like the younger guys. And who knows if he'll ever reach it, but that guy has the ability to dribble. He showed this year his shot has improved. He can obviously has the athleticism to get to the rim. He's not like the tallest guy, but he has a long wingspan, so that helps him out. He's got good timing on his blocks on defense. He moves his feet well. If he just cleans up some of the mental stuff and then gets to a point where he gets going at an offense and isn't just standing in the corner watching Melo shoot isolated post up stuff. I think I'm pretty excited as you are to see all this pan out.
We have 3 of our 5 bench positions filled essentially. I think Anthony will play both backup guard spots. I think he can play a point guard, and it's like in a movement-based offense, Anthony can be the de facto point who brings the ball up the court and initiates. You don't necessarily need a guy like a Ricky Rubio who's just going to run pick and rolls a ton and basically create everything for everyone off the dribble. You know what I mean? You don't need that type of point guard in today's NBA if you have an offense that moves. The problem is, under Stotts, with Anthony running the point, it would oftentimes result in everybody kind of standing around, and Anthony would have to make something out of nothing. He wasn't quite good at that, and then people would say, "Oh, he can't be a point guard," because we're so used to our guards being able to do that. I think in Chauncey's offense, Anthony will be fine there. I think, if we have CJ and Norm back, then Norm will play some too. But if we trade CJ for a forward, regardless of the situation, essentially, I think Anthony will play both backup point and backup 2. And then Nas will be our backup 3. And I think you have those 3 positions filled off the bench already with Anthony Simons and Nasir Little. Combined next year, they're only going to be making about $6 million between both of them. So it's nice. It's nice to have 2 guys that I think you'll be able to rely on next season, especially in an offense that suits them a lot better for so cheap.
Yeah, and Anthony will be going into his last year of his rookie deal, so he'll get paid that next summer if he breaks out and has a good year. And Nas still has 2 years left on his deal, so don't really have to worry about that for a couple of years. yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think to fill that out, like I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hate if Derek Jones is back as the small forward in that group or whatever, because that gives you another like super athletic guy. Like you could just send cutters for days and just keep running guys to the rim over and over again until someone gets open, basically.
In that
but
situation, Nas has to be the 4. Like,
Yeah.
Nas has to be in the rotation, in my opinion.
And then, but I think this is the biggest need for the Blazers is finding a 4 or a 5 who is a quick jumper, who has some athleticism, and is just like a rim runner type. I don't think we can get Nerlens Noel, but like, that type of player. It doesn't have to be like a super good player, just someone who is really active around the rim, tons of energy, like gets after it on defense and inside the paint. And it just so people are saying, so we got to replace Zach. That's like everything Zach probably would be if he was healthy. But yeah, I think we got to find just someone like that, so we can just run that fully and not have to worry about having one player that stands out as not fitting in that group or whatever. And I mean, if we do find that and he's a center, I think Melo could still maybe have a spot if he's used right. But yeah, just got to find a way, probably using our mid-level exception. That's what I would target, is just the best 4 or 5 and most athletic guy that you can get for the price.
See, like, yeah, I mean, if we have cheap guys off the bench that can play, so like Melo on a minimum, if he's used right, can maybe be serviceable. You want a good defensive center next to him. But if you have cheap enough guys off the bench, it opens up the possibility of maybe going after a guy in free agency via sign and trade and utilizing CJ's contract that way. Because here's the problem: if you bring somebody in that you sign and trade and bring them in, you're hard capped. Yeah. That would essentially mean the Blazers' salary can't go over $143 million. It's going to be tough to do that and re-sign Powell and have Dame, Nurkic, Rocco. That'd be about $125 million for your starting lineup. But if you have, 2 rotation spots filled for $6 million, you get back, I don't know, maybe a Melo on the minimum who can be serviceable. Harry Giles, maybe. I'd be curious to see him. I feel like he could be a good backup big under Chauncey. Even a guy like Zach Collins, and we'll touch about this. Like, I want to bring him back for a minimum contract. I don't think he's going to get his qualifying offer now that he's refractured his foot for a 3rd time. But there's no reason. Let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the Zach Collins thing. So he refractured his foot again. This is the 3rd time he's fractured it.
Yeah.
What? I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's like impossible for him to heal from this injury or what. Because it's just sad, man. Like,
I think if the same surgeon did the first 2, I think they need to just go to a different surgeon for that.
Yeah. Dude, come on. It's the same injury. Like, yes. Is his bones really that weak? I don't get it.
Well, so he hurt it like in the bubble or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then he said that they just ramped up his workload too fast or something, right?
Yeah.
So what did they do that again? Did they do the same thing?
I don't think so. I mean, they waited.
Yeah, they waited a long time. Here's the thing, like, it's hard to play doctor because that foot injuries, it's not like a knee or like Greg Oden. It's not the same situation like people are saying, because there's been plenty of players who have had foot problems and then all of a sudden they're just gone and then they never have, it never breaks again and he's fine. Or it could never heal and he could just, every 6 months he's going to break it and have to have surgery, and eventually after like the 8th time, like, he's just going to have to like be sat down and be like, dude, you can't play basketball anymore. It just doesn't work. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks because, 5-6 months, you're looking at what, December 1st at the earliest, like January 1st more realistically. The season's going to start earlier or back in the normal time this year.
Yeah, mid-October.
So you're talking about missing part of the season again. But this is a situation where if Zach didn't have foot problems in the future, and I don't know about minimum, but like if we signed him to like say 3 years, $9 million or something like that, give him a little bit of security in case his thing does, but then also give us like a cheap contract in case it doesn't. That doesn't really hamper our future. It doesn't hurt us.
We're gonna be over the salary cap. It's money we can't spend anyway.
Yeah, so
on anybody else. So
offer him like 3 years, $10 million, and or maybe even like 2 years, $6 million or something, and just like maybe the third year is like a team option, like Alvaro says, and then so it might end up being better. And I still think Zach, if he's ever healthy, is exactly what this team is missing. It's just, I understand the people that just want to like cut bait or whatever, but
I mean, what else are you going to use a minimum contract on? Another Anthony Tolliver, another CJ Ellaby. Like we had an open roster spot all year last season. There's nothing to lose by bringing him back super, super cheap.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is he's hurt and never touches the court for us again, and we have him under contract. But that's not such a bad thing, because we're not going to have cap space. Mm-hmm. You have to sign 14 players to a minimum contract anyway. Like, people will say someone who can actually play. I mean, usually you don't need 15 guys that can play. A lot of teams will use the 14th, 15th roster spot on somebody that literally will never see meaningful minutes for them. Okay? Well, and then you also have two-way deals on top of that, which next year I assume they're going to revert back to kind of being the same as they were in previous seasons. I don't know. But, like, it's just kind of a situation.
Did mention that in his exit interview that they would have to use the two ways to try and get good players this year. So,
yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. Is like the downside isn't bad. Mm-hmm. The upside is maybe he returns in January, and you have a good role player making like $2 million a year or $3 million a year, and is really, really cheap. Mm-hmm. I'll take that gamble.
I mean, he was on. We only had 14 people this year, right? He was on the roster. We had injuries, but we still had three centers, Nurk, Giles, and Cantor, on the roster. So, yeah, it's like use all 15 spots next year. Don't have the extra one. And just have him on the end of the roster. Like, because I guarantee you if he goes somewhere and it doesn't have foot problems someday. I know that's sort of a big if at this point. But like I said, foot is not the same, especially nowadays. It's not like Bill Walton or Sam Bowie where like a foot problem was like one of the career enders, like those things can be worked out. And the best example I can give is Zydrunas Ilgauskas. I don't know if you guys are too young to know who that is, but like he was probably LeBron's like second best player for a while when he was younger on the Cavs. And that guy had all kinds of foot problems, missed seasons, was always hurt. It was always his foot. And then all of a sudden, like he was healthy and played really well had a really lengthy career. And I mean, I'm not saying that that's 100% going to happen or whatever. Who knows? And like I said, I'm not a doctor, but like there is cases of people who are fine after a while, and like who cares?
They have to figure out what went wrong. Yeah. They have to try and figure out what went wrong. If it was the same doctor for both surgeries, you got to go to a different one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We don't know for sure that he could be fine after this. There's a chance of that, or he could refracture it for a fourth time. Yeah. But it's like everything with roster building is like risk versus reward, right? And I just don't see any risk bringing him back on a minimum or something and using the 15th roster spot for him or the 14th roster spot for him. And the reward is if he can get healthy He's a good role player, and the type of role player that's hard to find, because it's hard to find rim-protecting stretch fives that can also play the 4 and guard a little bit on the perimeter. You know how hard that is to find? Like, an offseason target that I'd be interested in, Memphis has a logjam of bigs, I'd be interested in getting a guy like Brandon Clark. I know a Gonzaga guy, yada, yada, but he's another guy that's cheap, you know, and and he's a really good defender. The problem is he's a power forward that can't really shoot, so you almost have to pair that power forward with a stretch 5. So, like, my dream cheap front court at the end of next season is Brandon Clark at the 4 and Zach Collins at the 5. Defensively would be phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Their games fit each other offensively. Zach can space the floor and shoot. Brandon Clark is more of a finisher around the rim type guy, despite being a power forward. Like, you get a guy like Zach, he can play the 4, he can play the 5, he can fit next to any type of power forward, or honestly, any type of center. So he has a lot of value in terms of, like, it's easy to mix and match the front court with him in it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you get a Brandon Clark, you can't have, like, a Enes Kanter offensively off the bench, in my opinion. Because you can't have 2 bigs that can't shoot. But Brandon Clark can't play the 5. He's undersized as the 4. That's the thing with a guy like Zach.
People are saying Zach won't be back next year. Yeah, he's...
Maybe not.
Maybe not, but 6 months is, like I said, January 1st. Or 6 months. Yeah, 6 months is January 1st, so... depending on when the surgery
Still more than half the season left.
Yeah, that's over half the season. And even if they were cautious, I mean, that's still half the season. And 6 months is like, because it's 4 to 6 months recovery. So 6 months is on like the tail end of that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could have the surgery and say like, oh, I'm sorry, it's never going to work out, you know? And so, yeah, it could be fine. But yeah, I wouldn't say he's for sure ruled out for the whole season or whatever.
And that's the thing, Eric. If you somehow swung a trade for Brandon Clark and re-signed Zach Collins on cheap, you would have an entire bench for less than $10 million. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is that opens up the possibility. I don't know. My plan A, I'll drop a video on it. My plan A is a bit wild, but I mean, that's the thing, is if you're able to get good role players on the cheap, it opens up other avenues in order to build the team. Maybe use the full mid-level exception instead of just the taxpayer mid-level exception. Because the thing is, if you use the full mid-level exception, your salary can't go past $143 million next season. You get hard capped. If you sign and trade for a player, you get hard capped. So that's why it's good to have guys that can play and contribute on extremely cheap contracts. It allows you to take some of that money you save, and it opens up other potential avenues. So that's the thing. That's a thing I think the Blazers should do this offseason, to kind of look at cheap bench options. Well, but, you know, if they have to be able to play, though, you know? So a guy like Zach is like a guy that, you know, you wouldn't factor him into the rotation at the start next year. He's still going to be hurt. You would go out and try and get a center. You know, maybe it's a Harry Giles on the cheap, but I think Harry Giles could be a good backup big under Chauncey Billups. That's the thing. So, I don't know. A lot of people might not agree with that sort of team-building philosophy, but it's not like we have a ton of cap space or anything.
I think there's a lot of those guys out there. One guy in particular got traded last year for basically nothing, and he played really well on his new team, and that's Daniel Gafford, who's only making like 1.5 or 1.7 million next year. So you either target guys like that who would be like too expensive to trade for, you know, you maybe give up a future first or something, or you find the next one of those guys, you know, like a Nicholas Claxton or a Gafford. Those are two guys who were second round picks that were good backup bigs this year. So, and they're energy bigs. So those are the kind of guys I've been talking about. And Gafford actually gets traded and shows some like passing ability and playmaking ability. So like maybe you find like a secret one like that. So like Brandon Clark would fit in there. Yeah, like just Tino Paz Hernandez keeps mentioning Scal. this might be stupid of me, but I still think Scal would be a good fit in that role as well. But maybe, especially if we lost Giles, like if he signed somewhere else, then just bring Giles back or Scal back in that Giles role as like the third center or whatever. I have no issue with that. So yeah, that's a good option. So when you speak sign and trade, do you have a particular person?
I mean, okay, guess, Eric.
Is it Kawhi Leonard?
That's the pipe dream. You got Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups been coaching for the Clippers. If Kawhi has a good relationship with them and wants to leave LA, swing for the fences. It's not likely. It's not likely at all. But if he has a good relationship with Chauncey, and you can put Chauncey in the meeting, and you can put Dame in the meeting, I mean, there's no reason not to try it.
Yeah.
You know? And sure, it's unlikely, but swing for the fences. And maybe that's part of Olshey's logic in getting Chauncey. You know, maybe that's one of his plans. I don't know. That's kind of the pipe dream.
Here's the deal. I mean, I get the criticism of Billups, but the players don't feel the way the fans do. The players absolutely love Billups. They want to play for him. This is the kind of move that gets you a meeting with a free agent like that, even though you don't have cap space possibly, versus like if we have Stotts still, like he'd be like, why would I even waste my time with a meeting? You know, like this might actually get you in the conversation to get a meeting like the Clippers did with LeBron in 2010 or whatever. So it's interesting. I don't know if you saw, so I tried to respond to you in the group chat about this. There's actually a scenario where we would not have to sign and trade for Kawhi.
He has a player option, doesn't he?
He has a player option. And what happened when Chris Paul left the Clippers was he went to them and said, look, I'm leaving. I'm opting out. I'm going to be gone. I'm not re-signing with you. And he said, so here's your choices. You can either trade me where I want to go. I'll pick up my player option, or I'll opt out and you'll lose me for nothing.
Yeah.
And it cost him a little bit of money, but you could have an agreement with him to give him a max either through an extension when he gets here or through like just kind of what we did with Hood, you know, basically. Yeah. We'll pay you when the time comes. Don't worry. We'll make up for it. So it could be a situation. I mean, I'm not saying this is likely. I don't think Kawhi will end up wanting to come here, but let's just say he did. So he could go to the Clippers and say, look, they want me. They have CJ McCollum they're willing to give you. So you can either accept that and have CJ, or you can lose me and I'll just go sign like with the Lakers or, you know, wherever. And you won't get anything for me. Yeah. And so if he was serious about leaving the Clippers, that would be his play. Now, I'm not saying that the Blazers would be the team he wants to. So this is, I have to give credit to Zach for this, Zachary, our mod. So he was the one who suggested this one. And it's basically Kawhi opts in, gets traded to Portland, CJ goes to Philadelphia, and Ben Simmons goes to the Clippers. And I think that is a great move for all the teams involved.
Simmons to the Clippers, Kawhi to Portland, you said?
Yeah, and CJ
to Philadelphia? Yeah. I mean,
we might have to throw in some picks or like do some stuff there, but that's, I think, a really solid move.
And do the Clippers have any picks left? Because that's the thing. If they're going to lose Kawhi, I think they'd give up a pick in order to get Simmons back when they're going to lose Kawhi anyway. So that's the thing you have to remember is they're going to lose Kawhi anyway. I mean, I think the Clippers would take back CJ and Derrick Jones Jr. So, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If you sign and trade for a player, it hard caps you at $143 million. That's why I was talking about very cheap backup options, because if you did that, you'd probably want to try and re-sign Powell. For as much as it's going to cost them, it would put us very close with a lot of roster spots left to fill. So you'd have to fill them with cheap guys.
But yeah, if we did that with Kawhi and he opted in, then we wouldn't be hard capped.
Yeah.
And we could pay Powell whatever he wants. We could pay like
use the taxpayer mid-level exception. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Like, here's the thing: people say, "Oh, there's no chance of this. There's no chance of that." You don't know. There's no chance if you don't try, and there is no reason not to try.
We're dreaming a little bit, but
like everybody's been all shit like, "Oh, he isn't aggressive enough going out and getting Dame that second star." I mean, I don't know how much Kawhi likes Chauncey player as well.
Is that just me?
I think we're lagging. Right in the middle of my point. Yeah. So I messed up my whole flow, man. Freaking lag. But if Kawhi really likes being coached by Chauncey, and then you also have another top 10 player, and Kawhi seems like the type who would be down for Portland. He's a pretty chill, laid-back guy, right? And, I mean, except for maybe the strip clubs, but, I mean, that also works in our favor. I don't know. I don't think there's zero chance. Like, it depends on Chauncey, but that's the thing. It's like, bro, what if Olshey, one of the reasons he brought in Chauncey is because he thinks it gives him a chance at Kawhi. If he got Kawhi, dude, his job would be secure for years and nobody could say anything bad about him anymore. Even the people that hate his guts wouldn't be able to say anything. I mean, that's the dream. That's the dream. And people sit here and say zero chance, but you don't know if you don't try, and there's no reason not to try. You gotta go for something.
We understand. We said that. It's probably not going to happen, but this at least, I mean, I think if you call him up, he's not going to be like, oh, why would I do that? Like,
yeah.
He would at least say, like, okay, I'll come in for an interview.
I mean, I think with Chauncey and Dame, he'd come here over a place like Dallas. I mean, like, what other destinations would be better? Without Chauncey, this isn't, like I say, we have zero chance. But with Chauncey, I think there's a little bit of a chance if Kawhi really likes being coached by Chauncey. Because he's going to come here to be coached by Chauncey. I don't know. That's the pipe dream. I mean, a lineup of Lillard, Powell, Kawhi Leonard, Robert Covington, and Yusuf Nurkic, in my opinion, is the best starting lineup in the league. We're the number one team in the West with that lineup. Especially with Chauncey as a coach, because I think Chauncey would be a great coach for that lineup. I mean, we would be like the cream of the crop contention level, like no doubt about it. Like we would be one of the front runners to win a championship if that happened. So try it. Throw a Hail Mary.
Yep. And then you could use load management to teach Nas to be exactly like Kawhi.
Exactly. You'd have Kawhi to turn Nas into Kawhi 2.0. I mean, yeah. So, and then here's the thing. You have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. I actually want to do that as a video series. So I wasn't planning on talking about Kawhi, but we already talked about it. That would obviously be like plan A, like the dream. But then you would have a plan B that you fall back on. And a plan C that you fall back on. And a plan D that you fall back on. So I want to release a series of videos saying the Blazers plan A, Kawhi Leonard. Blazers plan B. I'm not going to say this name. I'm not going to spoil it. The Blazers plan C. And just have a series of video. Maybe there's 5 plans, 6 plans. You have multiple plans. So if you strike out on Kawhi, you pivot to something. Here's the thing. You could pull off like a CJ to the 76ers, Simmons to Toronto, and Siakam to Portland trade. If that happens and you somehow get Siakam, that doesn't mean you can't go after Kawhi Leonard. Because then you could offer up Siakam instead of CJ as the sign and trade piece there. You know what I mean? So it's like you could still act, on draft night and maybe go out and get a star and then still try and go get Kawhi Leonard. You know what I mean? And if that doesn't happen, well, at least you got something good for CJ. So that's the thing, is it's a fluid situation. There's a lot of different plans here with building out this roster. I think Chauncey at least gets us a conversation with Kawhi, and there's no point not to try. So if he wants to go back to the Clippers, then obviously we're screwed. But if he wants to leave the Clippers, I think we get a conversation with him, with Chauncey and Dame. So, yeah.
So Rayshawn mentions Chauncey and Ben Simmons are both clutch clients. I don't think Chauncey likes Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I've seen quotes from Chauncey about Ben Simmons that are, dude, it's like Chauncey thinks this. It's like, okay, we should say, it's like I think the same way as Chauncey.
Yeah.
All right. Because it would sound a little too conceited if I said Chauncey thinks like
Chauncey's
me, bro.
Smart.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But it's like I think the same way as Chauncey does, because Chauncey is the biggest Ben Simmons fan. You guys know me and Eric aren't the biggest Ben Simmons fans, so I'd rather have Siakam than him, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see like what types of players Chauncey wants. I just think you got to send it. You got to throw a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And if not, hopefully you get a 50-yard gain.
Yep.
So
I promised Ethan Pettit we'd talk a little bit about his assistant coach comments during the presser if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great comment, MP Rana. Mpro on a 00.
What?
Someone to check.
Anyway.
So he said he wants an experienced staff.
Mm-hmm.
He said he wanted someone who was really good at defense, and he wanted and offense too. He didn't want to ignore that, but I liked how he said he went during the game. He's more focused on like the point guard and how he operates and running the offense and stuff like that. So it's good to have a coach that recognizes what he focuses on and needing guys who will compensate for that. So it's totally fine if that's his focus during a game, as long as he has the right people around him to be like, hey, we need to do this on defense or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, okay. So, and listen to those people. So he said he wanted some people with some experience, and he wanted some people who thought like him and that knew what the heck they were talking about, basically. I'm actually kind of on board outside of, I do want someone who like has some coaching experience in the NBA on the bench, obviously, but I'm on board if some of his assistants want to be some of his old Detroit Pistons crew. That's fine with me, I think, too.
Yeah, I mean, Rip Hamilton said he doesn't want to get into coaching. Maybe he can replace Olshey. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But Ben Wallace said if he was younger, he'd try out for Portland. Like, he'd love to be coached by Chauncey.
Yeah.
Bring Rashid back. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see who the assistants are. Yeah, an experienced coach would be great. Like a Steve Clifford, he's a good defensive coach. I don't want him as the head coach, but as a lead assistant under Chauncey, I think would be solid. That's a name I've seen thrown out there a lot. I see some people throw out Terry Stoss as the assistant. No. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. I assume like you'll start to hear some names kind of filter in over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Cooper, we saw the LaMarcus tweet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Eric's completely against that. I'm not as against that. But obviously, he wouldn't be a lead assistant. He'd be like the very bottom tier assistant.
Yeah.
But
it looks like Damon Stoudemire is going to go to Boston with Udoka.
Is he? Oh, yeah, I saw that today. That's interesting. That's two Portland guys right there, right?
All right. Alvaro, let me clarify that. I am fine. I think it's great. I would have been cool with LaMarcus coming back to end his career here. I think that is cool that he called Portland home in his tweets, all that kind of stuff. When I think coach and like teaching players and doing what's best for the team, LaMarcus doesn't scream that. I'm not saying he would for sure be bad. I just don't see it being the case, but yeah.
I mean, but he ain't gonna come and be the bottom tier assistant for attention. Like, you know, right. Like he knows going into that he's not gonna get attention. And he's admitted that earlier in his career he was a little bit too sensitive. I would like to think he's matured.
Well,
and just wants to be around the game. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, my thing is, like, he knew teams would have been better if he was the center instead of the power forward, but he was always like, I don't want to play center. You know, like I don't like guys like that seem like they're not willing, guys who know what it takes to win but doesn't necessarily want to do that. And yeah, you could say it was early in his career and he was sensitive or whatever, but he had problems with Popovich, and Popovich had to like basically change his the way he approached it with Aldridge and make him the focus of attention. And this was only a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he left San Antonio where he could have been the focus of attention to go play on a super team. You know what I mean? Where he was going to come off the bench, right? So, I don't know. I don't know. Like, and that's as a player, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's a little different as a coach. Like, as a player, it's almost like you're trying to constantly prove yourself. And when you're used to being that guy, sometimes it's hard for people to not, like, be the guy that everything runs through. That's what they're used to. And it's almost like, whoa, you know, they struggle to, like, change their play style. As a coach, I don't think that applies. You know, he's stepping in, you know, at the bottom level. And it's not like he's used to being the head coach. And then it's not like, you know, if you tried to say, hey, Terry, come be our fifth assistant, he's probably like, hell no, I'm Terry freaking Stotts. You know what I mean? Knowing how Stotts would go. And he wouldn't like that because he's been a head coach. A guy like Aldridge, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like if he wants to coach and would be willing to be like kind of a bottom rung assistant, like Evan Turner this past year for Boston, I don't think it would really cause issues. Yeah. It just, he has to be able to, like, be helpful. So, I don't know if you want Yusuf Nurkic shooting a bunch of 15-foot turnaround fadeaways like he's Dirk or LaMarcus. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. But
I like Gordon's
obviously people
crew.
like that for the nostalgia.
Gordon has a good crew. Steve Clifford, Earl Watson, and Ben Wallace. There we go.
Earl Watson and Ben Wallace. I don't know. Like, I've liked the idea of Earl Watson, but hearing the Valley podcast guys just bash him, I'm just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I think if he wasn't the head coach, I think it'd be different.
Yeah. And you know, like, I feel like Earl Watson would love to be an assistant under Chauncey and be back in Portland. Like, he obviously has a ton of respect for Dame, and he's been a head coach. So, yeah, I mean, Earl Watson as an assistant would be, like, I'd be down with Steve Clifford, Earl Watson, Ben Wallace to teach Nurkic how to be him. I don't know. But it'll be fun to see the assistants. It will be like stress-free, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll just get a report like, oh, we signed this guy as an assistant, and we won't really care. I don't think there's going to be a name that we sign where it's just like, no, he's going to be an assistant. I'm mad. Like, I don't feel like that's going to be the reaction. So it's just going to be fun to, like, sit back, relax, and see the assistants rolling.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of players that are kind of like Billups. So Sam Cassell's a guy who's been talked about for years as like a head coach, and he's never really gotten an opportunity to be the head coach. But like someone like that, only maybe a little younger. Not that Cassell's old or anything, but like someone in that vein who hasn't necessarily been a long-time assistant, but trying to think of guys in that vein like a Sam Cassell or a Chauncey Billups. I'm having a hard time thinking of them right now, but just someone like we might not really think of. And for anyone suggesting Scottie Pippen, that guy's kind of gone off the deep end the last week or so. I think you want to avoid that.
Yeah. People keep tossing out former Blazers. Like, I've heard Brandon Roy, I've heard Steve Blake, LaMarcus Aldridge, Scottie Pippen, and there's like Ben Wallace. I don't know. People are getting a little crazy with some of the coaching suggestions. Lead assistant, you definitely need somebody established, like a Steve Clifford, or, I mean, I'd love Mike Brown, but I don't think he's leaving Golden State.
Did he, Chiefin? Is that true?
What? Joy Taylor. Okay. Sam Bowie? No, not Sam Bowie. Greg Oden. Greg Oden's coaching at Ohio State, so yeah, let's bring back Greg Oden too. He can teach players how to get injured more, because we definitely need that. Terry Porter. Your mom threw out Terry Porter. See, like, everybody will always like the former Blazers back.
Yeah.
Caleb Pendergraft's trying to get a 5-minute ban.
I thought you were going to say JP Pendergraft.
JP
You were mentioning old Blazers, Jared Bayless.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, we're going too far here.
Porter, let's just say I love Terry Porter. He's my childhood but I think he should give up on the coaching thing probably.
Yeah. Are there fireworks already going off outside? I don't know if y'all heard that. It's
They're banned where you live. Did you hear that? Yeah. Clark County banned fireworks.
Oh, the whole county banned them?
Yep.
Oh, well, it's not July 4th. It's still June, so, I don't know. I think those are definitely fireworks. Hopefully they were fireworks. Hopefully they weren't gunshots or anything. Hashim the beat. Man, you guys are driving me crazy. Anyway. Anything else from the press conference that you want to touch on?
No, just I mean, it's going to be tough to navigate the situation, I guess, depending on how much people are affected by it, but I'm looking forward to getting to the basketball part of it.
Oh, for sure. Sure, man. We'll have you guys covered on what Chauncey brings. We go in depth in terms of our analysis. This next season will be a lot different than this past season. Instead of saying what Stoss should be doing, hopefully we're talking about all the great stuff that Chauncey Billups is doing when we're breaking down the game. The vibe should hopefully be a lot more positive in that regard. So, let's talk on the Becky Hammon thing a little bit. So, I mean, you guys remember, if you guys were in that stream, you remember what I said on stream that I heard about Becky Hammon, and then you have that report come out, Eric, basically saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's now like, oh, that was convenient.
Bro.
Olshey leaked that.
Oh, it pisses me off. Dude, there is so many narratives that people spun against Olshey today that were just complete and utter BS. And that was one of them. I've told you guys over a week ago that I was hearing things about Becky Hammon that wasn't good. And I listed off some of it. And then this report comes out right after the Blazers hired Chauncey Billups, and the report comes out saying they didn't hear good things about Becky Hammon. Guess what? Those good things is not completely manufactured by the Portland Trail Blazers. It's not about the Portland Trail Blazers. I heard it a week ago from a guy who, obviously at this point, Eric, has a source inside the San Antonio Spurs front office. That stuff came from the Spurs, not the Blazers. And I told y'all that over a week ago. And then that report comes out, and it's just comical to see Olshey haters sitting here on Twitter. How dare they try and smear Becky to try and make their hiring look better? You know what I mean? It's like Olshey's trying to smear Becky Hammon to make it's just a bunch of BS. It's people making up reasons to be outraged at Neil Olshey. But I told y'all over a week ago, that I was hearing that type of stuff. And I mean, honestly, it's not even hard to find. If you know, you know.
Second interview after you said that. I don't even know if she had the first interview.
Yeah, I mean, she still got a second interview, but yeah, so it's not like, I mean, I'm sure they heard that before and still decided to give her a second interview. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. The fact that Olshey was getting smeared for that report when that information was not coming from the Blazers. It was coming from the Spurs.
I also thought, I don't know if I fully believe this or not, but Olshey did also address the timing of the things and how it was hard because Chauncey Billups is still playing, but he flat out said he didn't leak that Chauncey was the coach. It just got out, and
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I believe that. They obviously weren't prepared for the backlash, so why would they leak it if they weren't prepared for the backlash? Do you think they didn't know that fan backlash was coming?
Mm-hmm.
It was leaked right when they decided it. So, I don't know if it's Chauncey's camp that leaked it, or Olshey's camp, but the Blazers front office is usually pretty tight-lipped about things, so it was a little surprising, but I believe that. There's no reason for him to leak it at that point in time. So.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, it's possible Olshey leaked it. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him to do that, but there's also. I mean, there's a bunch of people in the Blazers front office that have access to the information. There's all the Clippers front office who then access or granting permission for Billups to go back and forth between games and stuff like that. There's also agents involved, and there's also like people who see them or have to help set up the interviews, or there's people who know what's going on. So I understand the people that think like, well, it's just a mouthpiece, like Tory's becoming. But...
Bro, shut up. I'm so tired of hearing the word mouthpiece, man. Dwight James is an Olshey mouthpiece.
Anyone who likes Olshey is like a mouthpiece, obviously.
Wait. So Woj is Olshey's mouthpiece, and Dwight James is also Olshey's mouthpiece. So is Dwight James Woj?
I guess.
I also had a tweet earlier today. If Dwight James was the president. Oh man, Dwight James is the GOAT, apparently. I mean, okay, I'm tired of hearing the word mouthpiece. I'm tired of it, bro. Haynes is Dame's mouthpiece. Who am I a mouthpiece for, bro?
You know what was funny for a while, but now it's like that with me, is when, like, Trevin, I think, got called this today. Oh, you're Olshey's burner. Like, that's gotten old, too.
Bro, if you don't scream, if you don't scream at Olshey constantly on Twitter, man, you're an Olshey burner. Mm-hmm. Or you're an Olshey mouthpiece. Goodness. I mean, God. Social media is driving me crazy lately, man. If y'all follow me and saw the past 5 days on my Twitter account, hope you enjoyed, maybe, I guess, or hope I said some things that you wanted to say. Because, yeah, I've been on the front lines.
Sure, but that's because you are.
Yeah, that's because you actually are. Shervin's a meringue mouthpiece. Yeah, man. Shervin's that meringue mouthpiece, man. He's supporting corporations on YouTube instead of homegrown channels. He's a meringue mouthpiece, man. So, corporate shill Shervin SFO. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna respond to Olshey needs a mouthpiece. I just think
as many hits as he's taking.
Yeah, I've said this before. Neil, if you ever see this, you're welcome to come on the show. We will, ask you some good questions and have a good conversation. But I think he just needs to put himself out more, except for only in these situations, Like, it seems like the only time he ever gives a press conference is when, like, people hate him or something, like, want him, like, are mad at him. So, like...
but if he has a press conference in the middle of the season, you know what these people say? They're like, Olshey doesn't have enough press conferences during the season. That's what his haters say, right? Guess what? If he has a press conference in the middle of the season just to answer some basic questions, he'll start getting questions about, like, why is this roster struggling? Why are they struggling with this? Why isn't the defense better? What's he going to say? The coaching sucks? Was he going to, like, what is he going to say to that? And the thing is, whatever he says to that, people are going to be like, Olshey's such a moron, he's such an arrogant jerk, yada, yada, yada. Like, it's not going to go good for him. There's no point. It's going to end up with everybody yelling and screaming at him, no matter what.
I don't even think it has to be like that, because... I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like he wants to ever, like, have fun or, like, do it. And I know that might be okay, but, like... That's quote of the offseason so far. Like, coming on here is, like, I don't know, just, like, let loose and talk about some stupid stuff, maybe even, like, not basketball related, or, like, just getting to know him instead of just being like, I'll never trade CJ. Like, that kind of stuff.
So what you're saying is he needs to come on our streams.
I mean, I already said that. I started off my statement by saying that.
Yeah, so I'm just putting it out there more. I'm trying to speak it into existence. Let me speak it into existence, my guy.
Like, I'm not saying, like, we'd interview well. I mean, we've never had a a guest like that on here, so who the heck knows how? Like, we'd probably be terrible.
Neil Olshey, why do you yell when you trade?
Do you?
Oh my goodness.
But
we'd be better than Fentress.
Like, if he found the right, like, I'm not saying this is us or whatever, but if he found the right one where he kind of was able to let loose a little bit, talk about, like, you know, maybe just some behind the scenes stuff in addition to, like, some fun things he does in Portland, or, you know, just, like, get him to be more of a human. I don't know. Like, he just...
What does he seem like?
I don't know. He seems like he's just... I mean, there's a reason. Let's just say there's a reason why so many people dislike him. And I feel like if he was a little more personable, it would go away. But, like, most of the time when he has press conferences, he's on the defensive the entire time. And so, like, I think just, like, getting to know him a little better on a personal level would do wonders for him. I mean, it's probably a little too late for most people in Portland now, but actually I think it was on NBA TV, they did this, like, I don't even know what it was about, but it was like him and Danny Ainge and I think it was like David Griffin or something like that. And there was like 4 or 5 of them just on a table talking. And you could tell Danny just didn't really like him. But other than that, like, I just thought, like, stuff like that, it was kind of cool just to, like, hear people talk in, like, more of a setting like that. Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, it was just, like, cool to see them, like, talk about different subjects and just where it's not just like, oh, defend this move or why you won't trade this person or defend why you fired this coach or whatever. It was more just like in general talking about how you approach things, and I thought it was really good. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's welcome to come on whenever he wants, man.
Oh,
I mean, just give us our press credentials too.
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher your name. I know you just said on Twitter how to pronounce it, and
you butchered the word butcher. You said butcher.
It was something that I didn't think it was pronounced this way, but Sion G, however you say it, I'm so sorry. You can correct.
Sion, I think that makes sense.
So they asked if we talked about Jordan Schultz's comments on Neil Olshey. And not only Jordan Schultz, but there's this national narrative. It's all like secondary guys, you know, who are like Bleacher Report dudes with Sean Highkin and stuff like that, you know, like those kind of people. But there's this narrative now that Olshey, everyone hates Olshey. The whole league is against the Blazers now. Sion. Yes, thank you. That's how you say it. Yes.
How do you say it?
It's Sion.
Sion. Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Probably will forget.
But, like, okay. Something's not jiving here, right? Because Billups, we're finding out, is loved by players. So why is hiring him, like, around the league, like, thought of as a bad thing? Like, I don't think it is. Like, I don't think, like, other players are like, oh, Portland's a dumpster fire right now. I would never play there because they hired Billups, right? And I don't think people are like, oh, their GM is so bad. I would never, ever... Like, I think that's just because those people want so badly to believe that that's the case and can't stand why anyone would like him or whatever, you know? So, like, but yeah, well, if that's the case, like Noah Curran says, like, why wouldn't a Jason Kidd get the same backlash? Why isn't Mark Cuban getting blasted right now the same way Olshey is? Why isn't the other two teams that hired Kidd in the past and the Clippers last year hiring Billups as an assistant coach, why would they not feel the same way about those hirings in those organizations if they didn't or if they thought it was only because he hired Billups or whatever? Yeah, Dallas is getting very little backlash. I don't think it's that much. And most of the backlash is because Kidd has sucked as a head coach. It's not because he's a bad person or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, the kid helped them win a championship too, so.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I feel like Olshey put down the gauntlet. He's like, this is our guy. I'm going to stand by him. And he's either going to come out of this looking great because they win, or it's going to cost him his job eventually. So, I mean, like he's all in on Billups, and I mean,
yeah.
I don't see how that's job security or like why people would hate him for that. I don't know. I mean, I get that they hate the hiring him, but I don't think this was a move so he had job security. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He's going to be aggressive this offseason because his job's on the line. Like, do people think he wants to lose his job? If he wanted to lose his job, he just stepped down. He's going to do the best he can to build a winner this offseason. I fully believe that. He has more pressure on him than ever. He's more on the hot seat than ever. So I fully believe that he's going to have more pressure on, like, that he's going to be more aggressive. Because not only does he have all that pressure, but you also have the CJ replacement now with Norman Powell. And you have to try and re-sign him, and you might have to trade CJ to re-sign him. So, I mean, that's a situation where, like, it makes more sense than ever to trade CJ. And there's more pressure on him than ever to trade CJ. And it's not like he's completely refused to trade CJ in the past. So everybody like, oh, CJ's at the press conference, that means he's staying. Like, that's just another narrative that people want to get worked up over. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness, I can't believe CJ's at the press conference. He's not supposed to be a Blazer next year. Like, dude, I mean, if he's in Portland, he might be on the team next year. Coming to the press conference it doesn't mean he's not going to get moved. Olshey will move him for an upgrade. Him being at the press conference doesn't tell me otherwise. I don't think Olshey's going to move him for a downgrade. You're not going to see him trade CJ for like Terry Rozier and PJ Washington or whatever crap a guy like, a Dan Marang wants or whatever, a Sean Hyken wants or whatever media members. You know what I mean? Like, oh, goodness, our media. But he'll trade him for an upgrade if it's there. And he'll look for one, in my opinion. And if not, then CJ might be a Blazer next year. But I think everybody's in agreement. We should look for an upgrade for CJ or a similar caliber player at one of the forward positions. If not, I don't want to trade CJ for pennies. Not at all. I'd be curious to see CJ play under Chauncey. And hopefully you can keep Norman Powell too and he can be R3. I think that's kind of just where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I don't get either is Olshey came out and said, look, I believe in Chauncey's potential as a coach. I could have played it safe and hired a coach that would have, maybe gotten us past the first round this last year if he was the coach or whatever. But he's looking for the coach that gives them the highest ceiling and the biggest upside.
We forgot to talk about that because I've said that, right, guys? Yes. We need to raise our ceiling.
And that's exactly why I think Billups was the choice basketball-wise over D'Antoni or a Hammond or whatever, because I feel like if everything he conveys in a press conference or his philosophies through videos I've watched of him, if those translate to the basketball court the way he's wanting it to, I feel like he is going to be the best coach out of that group. And I would gamble on that too. But the fact that he was gambling on potential versus playing it safe just shows you that he knows he's got to do something like that to save his job and to make Dame happy. He's not going to make Dame happy and want to stay here if they just keep getting bounced in the first or second round or whatever. So he's trying to do whatever he can. So the first step is hiring a coach who raises the ceiling. Next step is seeing how much it raises the roster. If it doesn't raise the roster enough, then you make changes. It doesn't, just because he doesn't trade CJ this summer doesn't mean he can't trade him before next offseason. But then, like everyone's saying, he needs to take risks, like Trevin's saying, and then he takes a big risk on a coach, and then it's like, nope, can't have that either. But yeah, it's like I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that he's trying to save his job or whatever when he's taking a big risk with the coach hiring someone who, if it doesn't work out, he's for sure done. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that he specifically said, "Look, I'm looking for a coach that gives us the max potential."
Yep. Yep, that I forgot that one because I definitely wanted to touch on that because I've been saying, player wise too, you gotta try and raise this ceiling to contention level. If you can do that by raising the floor a ton too, by going out and getting a Kawhi Leonard, then dope. But if not, you might have to take a risk on a guy, and I don't know. People will say, okay, yeah, that's why you trade for Ben Simmons. I don't think Ben Simmons raises the ceiling all that much because I just am not a believer in him as the number two. I think he lowers the floor, and I don't know how much he raises the ceiling. I don't think it's much. You can disagree with that. I understand why somebody would disagree with that. We're not going to get into that. We already have on a stream and on a video and, multiple times in the past couple weeks. But, I mean, roster-wise, coaching-wise, you got to try and give this team a chance to make an NBA Finals run. And here's the thing. The ceiling may be championship even if you don't realize it. I mean, Eric, look at the Atlanta Hawks. They're 2 games away from the finals. And I wouldn't put it past them to beat the Suns or the Clippers, especially if the Clippers don't have Kawhi. Their ceiling right now is a championship, Eric. The Atlanta Hawks. We're better than the Hawks. Obviously, they have the Eastern Conference to play through. It's a little bit easier there. But, I mean, it's more wide open now than ever, I think. So, you got to give... I think we'll play a style of play that will translate a lot better to the playoffs. We should be a lot better defensively no matter what the roster is. I feel like if we had Chauncey this year all season, we could have had a chance to win a championship. I honestly do believe that. I think we could have competed with the Suns. I think they would have maybe been favored, but I don't think the roster is heads and shoulders above ours. So... I mean, I think we would have been favored against a Clippers team without Kawhi. I think we were the better team than Denver, for sure. Going to the finals, I mean, hopefully Giannis doesn't have a serious injury. But if he does, I mean, Atlanta or the Bucks without Giannis, I mean, I think we could have won a championship this year with Chauncey. So going forward, hopefully we're able to make the right roster upgrades. But regardless, I think we got the most important thing, which is we got the right head coach, in my opinion. We replaced Stotts, which is just cool to say for how long I've been tired of him. So, I'm excited. Everything was kind of doom and gloom. Oh, Dame, Dame's frustrated with the fans, yada, yada, yada. I don't think that's going to get worse. I think I want to play for Chauncey. I think a lot of the players want to play for Chauncey. I think Chauncey will do the right things. Even if we run it back, I think we'll be a noticeably better team next year. But I think we will look for upgrades. And we'll be aggressive this offseason. So while everybody's like doom and gloom and the franchise is divided and everybody's yelling and bickering at each other, I think there's a lot to look forward to. I'm actually feeling pretty good right now.
Yep. I do. Yeah. I'll just say yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything left?
No.
What's up?
I was just going to say, with all that being said, I still want to just say for the record, totally understand if you're still against this. You don't want to ever accept Billups or whatever as the coach. Totally fine. Tori and I do not have a problem with any of that. But you have to understand, we're going to talk about it now from a basketball perspective. We've addressed it several times, and stuff's going to come up that we'll have to talk about, but we have no problem with anyone who will never accept Billups, and it brings up bad things just to look at someone like that. That's totally fine if that's your view. We're not going to say you're wrong or anything. You're welcome to feel however you want. Tori and I are just going to talk about how we're excited from a basketball point of view about it. And we both feel excited about it. It doesn't mean we're okay if he did that or what his past is or anything like that. We're just going to be happy that this team has a guy who is in charge who can lead them in the right direction on the court.
Yep, I agree with that. So anything left that you want to touch on, or are you ready to wrap things up?
No, other than, real quick, the Dame stuff I think is overblown. I truly believe he was probably just signing into Twitter to he was going to congratulate Billups on on good being named coach, and before he does that, he sees like 100 messages saying like you better speak out against this and stuff, and I think he got kind of confused, and yeah, I mean, I'd find it hard to believe that he didn't want Billups to be the coach, or that he's not happy once this all, or if it does go away, that when he gets on the court that he'll be fine with it.
Yeah, and I don't know. The thing is, like, if you hit a home run, he'll want to be here the next 3-4 years. You know what I mean? Like, or even if we hit a triple. Like, if we have a good offseason personal-wise, there's literally nothing to worry about. So that's why I'm just sitting back like, all right, let's give him that chance. Honestly, if we run it back, though, like, he's a guy that's loyal. I don't think he's going to want out until maybe next offseason if it fails again. But the thing is, I think we will be a much better team with Chauncey Billups as the head coach. And we'll have the opportunity to upgrade the team at the trade deadline as well this next season. We'll have all our future picks. We'll have Anthony Simons. If Anthony Simons breaks out and there's like a legitimate star available, he's going to be a pretty appetizing young prospect, assuming he has the fourth-year breakout I think he can have under Chauncey Billups. Same thing for Nasir Little, you know? And then if CJ McCollum looks better under Chauncey, all of a sudden teams want him a little bit more. So that's the thing, is like, even if we run it back, it's not the end of the world. I would like to upgrade the roster. I would love to upgrade the roster this summer. But who knows if those options are there or not. Some people will act like the sky is falling if we don't trade CJ. Whatever, I get it, I guess. But I think that, yeah, all that stuff's overblown. I mean, Brian Windhorst said that Dame isn't serious about requesting a trade out of Portland right now, and Brian Windhorst is the guy who basically thinks every star should always play in a big market. So
I don't know if I believe.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe him, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he wouldn't make it up in that way. I feel like if Windhorst makes it up, it's like, oh yeah, Dame would like the Lakers. You know, it's always like this star on the Lakers for Brian Windhorst. So the fact that he said Dame is serious about requesting a trade right now, I mean, I don't know. I'm more apt to believe that than the other way around from him. So, I don't know. Take everything with a grain of salt, of course. But that includes the Chris Haynes tweet and everything. You know, it was like, that's our worst nightmares, right? But I don't think that situation is going to get worse at all this offseason. Dame will be here next year. Thing is, Dame will be able to get away and play on the Olympic team. And everybody will freak out like, oh, players are going to recruit him. Who? The Nets ain't getting him. You know what I mean? The Nets are already loaded. What players better than him are on that Olympic team? Nobody. How are the Suns going to get him? You know what I mean? Devin Booker's going to be there. Is Zach LaVine going to recruit him to the Bulls, Eric? Is Jeremy Grant going to recruit him to the Pistons? You know what I mean? Is Drew Holiday going to recruit him to the Bucks? The thing is, Drew Holiday would probably have to be in a trade for Damian Lillard, so I'm not sure Drew Holiday is going to be recruiting him to the Bucks. So everybody talking about, oh, stars are going to recruit Dame in the Olympics. I'm not worried about that whatsoever. Draymond's going to recruit him to Oakland, to San Francisco now, to Golden State. I'm not buying that. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. People are going to freak out about certain things and anything to do with Dame potentially leaving or Dame being recruited to another team in the Olympics and yada, yada, yada. Then, I don't know. I'm not buying that.
I think there's just as likely of a chance that he convinces someone to join him. We heard last summer or I guess it wasn't summer, last fall when him and Giannis were talking about teaming up. And
yeah.
So, yeah, get around Dame for a few weeks. I think that guy has influence and could possibly do something. I'm excited to actually see him play in the Olympics as well.
Exactly. So just chill out with the Dame stuff, you know. You guys know how media works. They sensationalize things. They've sensationalized this hiring. They've sensationalized Dame wanting out. They've sensationalized what the Lakers have to offer for Dame. I mean, that's the media sensationalism for clicks. So don't buy into it. Don't reward them for sensationalizing the situation because it's not as drastic, anywhere near as drastic as it seems if you listen to the media. So anyway, that's probably going to wrap up the stream. We've been streaming for over 2 hours. Shout out to you if you've watched the entire thing. This is a bit longer than normal Blazers Uprising lives, but had a lot to talk about on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this stream. We'll be live again on Thursday. That's only in 2 days since we pushed the Monday stream back to Tuesday. So we'll be live on Thursday again right here, 9:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. On Friday, we're going to have our off-season mock draft. I'm planning on having that on the main channel right now. So if you want to tune in for that and kind of see who our mock off-season teams draft, and it could be some good draft prep for you guys, then Friday, going live I think around 7 p.m. is the plan right now. We will be streaming our mock off-season draft, and we'll go over some of the other moves that have been made in the mock off-season since we last talked about it last Thursday. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at ToryJonesYT. Eric is at HoopsJock. The channel is at Blazers Uprise YT. I need to remember to put those links in the description. I don't have a description set up for the second channel. But definitely go follow us because we've been dealing with the Twitter firestorm for a few days now. Other than that, if you haven't subscribed to our main channel, I feel like this channel is getting enough attention that I might need to start plugging the main channel. If you haven't subscribed to our main channel, make sure to go subscribe to it. We do post-game streams over there during the season. We're doing a lot of videos right now, as well as big streams. We streamed the Chauncey Billups hiring reaction over there, among other things. So definitely go subscribe. There's a link in the chat if you're not subscribed somehow to our main channel, because we're closing in on 5,000 subs. That'll be a cool goal to hit. Anyway, Eric, anything I missed?
No, just thank you everyone for watching. Really appreciate you all. This was, I think, one of our higher viewed Blazers Uprise live channel shows, and we appreciate all of you, even if you disagree with everything we said. If you think Zach sucks and you hate Olshey and you want Billups fired tomorrow, that's totally fine. And thank you for tuning in anyways and giving your input. We appreciate it.
Yep, we will see you all on Thursday. Hopefully you have a good rest of your night. Until next time, we're out of here. We'll see you later. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.